If I told you that one of the best decks in the upcoming meta is going to be one of the lyrical decks in this set, would you believe me? Well, we're going to find out today as we're going to break down the 4th Lyrical Monasterio set. And honestly, this might be one of the best ones so far. I think Festival Booster you could technically count as a lyrical set too, but that one is a bit, you know, of a gray area. Last year's lyrical set was pretty good too. The summer one was pretty nice. Michu was a good deck. Lutetia was a really good deck. There was a lot of good decks that came out of it immediately. But this time around, I think not only do we have really good new decks, but we also have really interesting old deck support and also really interesting just card support in general. So I'm a pretty big fan of it. So we're going to break it down today as well. Even if you're not a fish bro, I'm not a fish bro, but I think it's pretty interesting. And there's definitely some really cool cards in here that I think you should know about going forward as well. Even if this is not legal for your BCS season, I think it's something worth to find out about. So let's just get into it and talk about the new fish. So we don't have nations to sort by, so we're going to break it down into archetypes and stuff. I want to go over the new ride lines first, and then we're going to do the encounter ones, and then we'll do the old supports, and then the generics. So first things first is my girl Shiana. Shiana, this is the most interesting card design we have had in Vanguard in a very long time. All because her entire ride line from 1 to 3 shares this third effect, which says, at the end of the battle that she was attacked by a rear guard, if for that battle nothing was called to the Guardian Circle, your opponent chooses a card from hand and has to discard it. If they don't, then you bind that rear guard. So for a lot of multi-attack decks, they just basically get screwed over by the fact that she doesn't target either, by the way. So anything that like says like this unit cannot be chosen by effects, she doesn't target it, your opponent has to plop it over to the bind zone. So basically anything that attacks just get puts to the bind zone unless your opponent ditches a card, which is really hefty, right? Forcing your opponent to ditch one, it's like a lot of decks don't really like doing that, right? And so of course in this format there's quite a few decks that like bounce their own attackers back to hand, or like, you know, they just like retire after an attack or stuff like that. So they can duck this thing, you know, this effect, and she is able to, you know, still put on that pressure. But that's not all, right? Because you're thinking, well, I still need to guard eventually, right? I can only take 5 attacks before I die. Her second skill is every attack that she's attacked, you can put a trigger from hand to soul to then give her plus 15k for that battle. So she automatically converts any trigger in hand into a 15k shield, while also enabling that second effect. And also blitz orders work super well with her too. And the best part is that if your opponent has an empty front row and empty Guardian Circle, she gets a crit and a drive. More specifically, your opponent has to have 2 or less cards between their front row and their Guardian Circle for her to keep that drive and crit. So if they have no front row, they have to guard with 3 cards from hand to turn off the crit and drive, which is really annoying because her attack power isn't that huge. So you want to like 15k for 2 to pass, or like, you know, 20k for 2 to pass sometimes, but it's like, well, the one card is going to make it a triple drive with the crit. So if you take it, you eat a lot of damage for an easy-ish guard, you know, like attack to guard. And if you don't, then it's like if you drop a couple cards and they like, you know, break through a 2 to pass, well, then you're eating damage and you wasted cards. So I really like that every single interaction with this deck is really interesting. It shuts down all early rush, and you have to always think like every move you make against this deck, every step you take, she is watching you. Like this is the most interesting card design they've made. I'm not a lyrical bro. I'm building this deck out of respect for the people that designed it, because I think it's the coolest thing ever. I think it's the coolest deck they've designed in the D series in a very long while, and I really look forward to what they have cooking in the future. I hope there's a lot more of this. So like 10 out of 10, I love this deck so much. It's not necessarily the best, but I like it a lot. Then we have Fendel. She's, to give you a TLDR, she plays these trick or treat orders that she can have up to 16 of in the deck. So it's like if Gravidia stopped eating rocks and started eating candy instead, and she gets basically she gives another rearguard a crit and also herself a crit. And then if you've played 3 orders per turn, so you have to always play 3 orders every single turn, you can recycle them too. She also gives power for every one of the trick and treat orders in your drop zone to your front row, plus 2k for each, which is pretty good. So she's sadly the worst one. This one is definitely like the most like, I wish this was better. But, you know, it's still going to be probably a fun deck for people that like decks like Gravidia that are a bit like unconventional in deck building style. But the big winner of the new ride lines, I think, is Sharumoto. So she basically just functions with her own ride line, where she calls out her ride line from soul, gives herself power, and then if her power is 33k or greater, that's where she pops off, right? So it's kind of like Dimension Place like Gallop with Burst. So basically, it's like when she attacks being unboosted, you choose 3 of your Great to or lower Lyrical Set rear guards, and you put their power to be the same as herself. And then basically, if she's 33k or greater, you can then Soul Blast 2, and the middle back row unit you chose for this ability gets the drive check as well. So you get to do 3 drives per turn, which is pretty damn nice. So it doesn't stop at 33k. I've been hit by 73k in playtesting against this, and it basically becomes a case of PG or die, right? This is, if you miss that Dimension Police Gallop playstyle, she is her. She is the one. So also an amazing deck. Unfortunately, in Japan it's a little pricey, just because she plays quite a few of the generics. She also plays the cycle card that we'll talk about later too, which is also the priciest card in the set. So she also needs 4 Resius, so if you don't have your Resiuses, pick them up fast, because in Japan they're going up very quickly for an old rare, which is pretty interesting. How does she get to 73? She gives 5k to herself by her own effect, her rear guards give her 5k, and Resius is an on-place give anything plus 10k, so you call a couple of Resiuses and there you go. And don't forget Persona Ride as well. So really good deck, very simple to play too. So if you want just like an easy deck to take the tournament so you don't run out of stamina, it's a great pick, right? So for the new ride lines, it's like two huge hits and 1 pretty big miss. So overall, pretty high rating, I guess. However, we still have 2 more ride lines. We have Pacifica and, of course, Prisms. So Pacifica is interesting where the normal Pacifica doesn't do too much. It draws you 2 cards by botting a card from hand as well, and calls any normal unit from your deck. But, you know, it calls it to an empty rearguard circle and then you can attack with it. Awesome. But normally you want to call out the Planet Idol Pacifica, who then can attack from the middle back row rearguard circle, and is a 23k attacker, and puts yourself to Soul after that, draws a card, and also gives that unit that you can choose one of your units to give plus 5k too. So just a lot of searchers. The whole deck kind of revolves around keeping your Pacificas in rotation, and the only issue is that she doesn't really gain power. Only this thing has power, everything else is pretty small. Pacifica herself is only 13k, like 23k on Persona. It's kind of okay, it's nothing too crazy honestly, and that's like somewhat unfortunate, I would say. But it feels like a deck that has a lot of compression, and a lot of stuff makes sure that you can keep these 2 in rotation, so it's probably okay, but I'm not personally too excited about it. What I am excited about is Labrador. Labrador is looking very good. We talked about her on Tuesday, by the way, so if you haven't watched that video, check it out. But she basically does the same old thing. She's the exact same old Labrador, but made to be modern numbers, right? So when she attacks, you CB1, and you choose 2 prisms from your hand, call them to empty rearguard circles, then draw 1, and you give your whole front row plus 5k if your opponent's on grade 3 or greater, and she gets a crit. So basically the old Labrador just minus the Limit Break 4. And some people call that boring. I think it's nostalgic, and I think it's not the biggest deal. The thing is that she's herself not the biggest standout, but she has amazing rear guard. She has this one with, like, you know, CB1 to search for prisms, and if you don't find them, she soul charges, and end of battle she lets herself get bounced back to hand, so you always keep those open rearguard circles. And of course we have, you know, Celtic and Leite, who, you know, basically bounce themselves while being 10k shields, so that means that you're bouncing back really high quality hands. And on top of that, you have Leite as well, who also is a counter charger and a soul charger, and again 10k shield in hand, so you are bouncing back huge power cards. They also gain 5k in their own too, and you also play this order, which is a double rare generic that's CB1s, and for the rest of this turn all your rearguards get plus 5k. Ones that come into play later, ones that are already in play now, they will get the plus 5k, which is really good for this kind of multi-attack deck. The only thing is that it's just another multi-attack deck. It is also pretty good in aggro, so essentially, you know, you do need to bounce it around, but the way that my Go plays and this plays isn't too different. So that's kind of like the big stress factor, but a lot of people are saying Labrador is looking to be the best of the new decks, so high rating for that. Then we have the 2 dress-ups. Eruminia is really good. She basically says that during your battle phase, if you have 3 or more face-down damage, then all of your front row powerful ability units have CB1 reduced from their auto cost. So even her own skill says if you Persona Road, it's her like the second ability's cost is CB1, so it's CB0 if you have the first skill active. And otherwise, at the end of battle she attacked, if you have 0 soul, she lets you ditch a Herminia from hand to stand all of your powerful rearguards in your front row. So don't forget, this deck has a drive checking rearguard that you also reduce the CB of here too. which is pretty crazy. So you get to do like swing, drive check, get 10k, swing with Vanguard, stand everything, swing, drive check, get more 10k. Like the 10k gain on that rearguard is also like for the turn, so it's like really, really good. So her mini is probably gonna be pretty strong. It's takes a little bit to amp up, I guess, but overall it's looking to be very good. And then of course, Fortier is less impressive. She's the same old Fortier, just with an extra drive. That's about it. So, bit unfortunate, less flashy, but probably still gonna be pretty okay. And a lot of our other supports seem pretty good too. And then of course, so I think these two, I think Ermini is the bigger winner. I definitely felt more fear struck in me by this deck than the others. For the generics, the Dragon generic's okay. CB1 draw 1, get 10k as like the unique skill is kind of whatever. But more importantly, we have like the grade 2 order cycle card is pretty good because again, it's soul loss 1 to like a top 5, either call something or add an order to your hand. So it's pretty good in everything. And this one is basically like if this unit was placed this turn and attacks a grade 3 or greater, CB1 draw 1 and get plus 10k. So she's a strong attacker. She things your deck, calls out virtually anything. Like honestly, for these order cyclers, Lyrical got one of the best ones. And the funny rat, of course, is really good in defensive decks, right? So Shiana really likes this, but it lets you get back your Persona Ride from drop or soul, which is also really nice as like a once per game ability. So we're quite big fans. But speaking of generics, she's not a new card, but Yuika was reprinted not as a reprint card, but as an actual card in this set, which means that her pull rate is the same as other triple rares. There's gonna be a lot more stock of Yuika in this set after this set comes out. This is huge. Yuika's price actually got sliced in half, which is pretty nice. So definitely thankful. Still a bit of an expensive card, of course, but still, it's a good move. Keep it up, keep it up. And the OT also got reprinted, which is nice. They haven't had a reprint for the OT for Lyrical in a little bit, I want to say. Not a lot of Lyrical decks play the Lyrical OT, so I guess that's kind of part of the reason why it's not as impactful. But for the generics, they also reprinted like the PG, so there is a new Perfect Guard if I can find it. It's here somewhere in the rares. There's quite a lot of cards in the set, as you can see. So there's the new Perfect Guard, and they also reprinted all the triggers too. So the crit, draw front, and heal without effect, which is also pretty nice. Speaking of generics too, there's this little package with this card that like cycles a 5k extra power and like recycles your units a little bit. But most importantly, it's a really nice blitz order that's mostly used in Shiana. So it says if you have 3 or more open rearguard circles of your own, then you get to play this, which gives one of your units being attacked plus 50k shield and also, or sorry, power. And if your opponent's Vanguard is placed by an ability this turn, then you get to give plus 30k instead. So plays by ability means Youthberg, it means Mask decks, it means Stride decks as well. So there's actually quite a few things that this checks. So it's pretty good. Especially don't forget the Mask decks. This pretty big part of it. And also all the superior red grade 4 decks like Seraph and things like that. Also, this will check too. So it's a very good generic piece. But then on top of that, quite a few old decks got some support cards in this set too. Some of them got in higher rarities than others. But we're gonna only talk about the ones that are worth mentioning. And the first one to really mention is Kaidi. So Kaidi got this triple rare and also has a superior red promo, which is pretty important. But basically, it's a 15k attacker that when your Kaidi bounces something, you can soul blast 1 to stand her column, which is pretty good. And if you're in grade 4, she also gives your front row plus 5k, which helps to deal with Kaidi grade 4's lack of power usually in the late game. And so basically with this skill, you're able to like go on grade 3 Kaidi, right? Like swing rear, swing Vanguard. Kaidi bounces one of your columns. She sees that, she soul blasts 1, she stands the other column. So you get a 4th attack at full power, which is really nice. So we like that. We can get over defensives. So like Kaidi's turn 3 is becoming a little bit better, which is nice. And then there's a few other Kaidi support cards too. Medial got some pretty insane random cards. The most important one I'm gonna try to find is this one. This grade 2 is kind of crazy. So if you don't know what Medial does, is she revives these like grade 2 girls that look like Outer Orange, and they have like crits and power, and they just kind of spell doom very quickly. And what she used to do is only be able to call one of them. But this card says, if you have a Medial Vanguard, you put her to Soul, and you make it so that your Vanguard's Act skill, instead of calling 1 card from drop, calls 2. It spawns 2 Outer Oranges instead of 1. So for no cost, just go to Soul. So it's literally like it's not a cost, it's a bonus. You get a bonus Soul while doing that. So, and yes, they restand with the crit. That is also true. Like this card's really good for Medial, so we'll just keep it there. Medial definitely got some big support on that side too. So the other ones are Letitia and Kyoka. that also got some nice support. Kyoka, for me, there was one card that we'll see if we can find it. The Lutetia card is also one that isn't too obvious to the naked eye, so I have to kind of scout it out here real quick. Oh, this is the Kyoka card. So this one lets us get a grade. So she gets grade 3, so you get like the different, you get all the different grades basically on your field pretty easily, which is also gonna be nice with the new promo that's coming up to relatively soon. And basically, she also lets you, you know, put herself to soul to give a unit plus 5k, which for an aggro deck is really nice as well. So big fan of this one. And then I'm trying to find the one Lutetia card that gets you back stuff, but I'm kind of stuck here. Where does she go? This, oh yeah, this one. Right. So this Lutetia card's pretty good too. So basically she lets you ditch 1, look at top 7 for 2 Jujutsu cards, and then add them to your hand. And then if you didn't, then you just draw 1, right? So it's like, she basically is like a trade-off, but getting, and she also has boost too, as long as you've played a Jujutsu order this turn. So honestly, pretty damn nice. So she's pretty nice for Lutetia, I would say, and overall pretty impressive. So I think overall that's like the main decks that from the older ones that got big support. Of course, the main focus of supporting old decks is on Herminia and Fortia. Herminia also got a lot of like 10k shield cards, which is really nice. So both her and Labrador are winning pretty big on that front. Overall, it's kind of hard to rate Lyrical as a whole because it's rating an entire set. But overall, I guess it's a pretty high quality set. I think that the new decks are mostly all really good. The generics are all good, and a lot of the old support is like valid. Like we went through the entire set list, and there was like maybe like 2 comments that I was like, okay, this is like not even worth reading. Everything else feels like it serves a purpose. So overall, I would rate this pretty highly. I'll give it a 4 out of 5 overall, like 4.5 out of 5 even. We'll bump it pretty high. Definitely still a couple, like, kind of wish Fennel was a bit better and Fortia was a bit more original, but other than that, everything else in this set is pretty good. It makes sense they wouldn't give too much support to the decks they just supported in spring as well, so I think that overall it's pretty nice. Oh yeah, Fortia has a Garden Strike too, so there is definitely quite a bit, but it feels like the Fortia card design is a little boring considering that Shiana's right there, right next to her, right? So I think that overall it's pretty interesting. So let me know in the comments below what you think. What are your first impressions of this new Lyrical set? Do you like it? Is it your favorite? What are the decks you want to build from it? And what are you looking forward to the most? I myself have ordered both a Prism and Shiana playset for 5,000 yen each, which is like 35 bucks, 40 bucks or something. So I saw they were really cheap, and like I already have most of the expensive old Lyrical cards. I was like, instead of selling them, I guess I'll just play more Lyrical decks. And especially Shiana, I just have respect for making such a cool deck. So pretty big fan. But let me know yours in the comments below as well. And of course, if you like this video, give it a like. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. And if you want to get some bonus content, consider becoming a YouTube channel member as well. I just uploaded a POV Youthberg fight that you can watch in first person and enjoy. So do become a YouTube channel member if that's the kind of content that interests you as well. But with that, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.